3 hours after giving birth, my husband smiled at me, kissed my forehead, looked down at our newborn daughter, and called her by his ex-girlfriend's name. At first, I genuinely thought I had misheard him because I was exhausted, emotional, and barely functioning after 20 hours of labor. But then he leaned closer to the baby, brushed her tiny cheek with his finger, and whispered, "She looks exactly like Sophia." My entire body froze. Sophia was not some random name. Sophia was his ex-girlfriend, the ex he swore he never loved seriously, the ex he claimed was manipulative and toxic, the ex he promised he had completely moved on from years ago. And somehow, out of every possible name in the world, out of every single conversation we had during my pregnancy, he had secretly chosen her name for our daughter. I remember staring at him in complete silence while the nurse continued filling out paperwork at the end of my hospital bed. My husband looked completely calm, like he had said nothing wrong at all. I laughed awkwardly because I genuinely didn't know what else to do and asked him why he had called her Sophia. He looked confused for half a second before smiling and saying, "Oh, I just think the name fits her." My stomach dropped instantly because we had never agreed on that name. Not once. During my entire pregnancy, we had gone through baby name lists together almost every single night. We had sticky notes all over our apartment with names written on them. We had arguments over names. We had literally made spreadsheets ranking names, and Sophia had never been mentioned. Not once. The nurse then smiled and held up the birth certificate paperwork and asked me to double-check the spelling before she finalized everything. I reached for the paper, still completely confused, and then I saw it. Sophia. He had already written it down. My husband had filled out our daughter's name as Sophia while I was asleep after labor. I felt like my brain completely shut down for a moment. I looked at him and asked, "Why would you put that name?" And he immediately got defensive. He sighed loudly and said, "Are you seriously doing this right now? It's just a name." Just a name. I swear, every woman watching this already knows that whenever a man says it's just a name, it is never just a name. Comment below right now, because if your husband named your baby after his ex, what would you honestly do? Because I genuinely didn't know whether I was overreacting or whether this was one of the biggest red flags imaginable. Anyway, my husband started acting irritated, like I was somehow ruining the happy moment. He kept saying the name sounded elegant and timeless, and that I was making drama for no reason. But the thing is, throughout our relationship, he never talked about Sophia unless I specifically brought her up. Whenever I asked about her, he would either shut down or act annoyed. The little information I knew came from his family and mutual friends. Apparently, they dated for almost 6 years. 6 years. Meanwhile, he and I had only been together for 3 years before getting married. And suddenly, every weird little thing from our relationship started replaying in my head like a horror movie. I remembered the first time I met his mom. She accidentally called me Sophia during dinner. At the time, she laughed it off and blamed her age, but now I wasn't so sure. I remembered finding old pictures of them together hidden inside a drawer in his office. He told me he forgot to throw them away. I remembered how weirdly quiet he got whenever someone mentioned her name. I remembered how one time, during my pregnancy, I suggested the name Lily for our daughter, and he immediately rejected it because he said he wanted a classic name. Looking back, I realized he wasn't searching for a classic name. He already had one in mind the entire time. I started crying in the hospital room and asked him if he was seriously still obsessed with his ex. Instead of comforting me, this man rolled his eyes and said, "You just gave birth. Your hormones are making you emotional." I genuinely wanted to throw the hospital water pitcher at his head. The nurse looked so uncomfortable and quietly left the room. My husband then sat beside me and started talking to me like I was a child. He kept saying, "You're twisting this into something weird." But the more he spoke, the more suspicious he sounded. Because if the name truly meant nothing, why had he hidden it from me? Why had he filled out the paperwork while I was asleep? Why didn't he ask me first? None of it made sense. Then things somehow got even worse. His mom came to visit later that evening, and the second she heard the baby's name, her face changed completely. I will never forget it. She looked shocked for like half a second before forcing a smile and saying, "Oh, wow, Sophia." That reaction told me everything. She knew. Everybody knew except me. I confronted my husband the second his mom left, and this time I completely lost it. I started asking him if he had secretly been in contact with Sophia, if he still loved her, if he married me because I reminded him of her, and he got angry immediately. He started yelling at me in the hospital room while our newborn baby was literally sleeping beside us. He accused me of ruining our daughter's birth experience with insecurity and jealousy. Imagine calling your postpartum wife insecure because you named the baby after your ex. Absolutely insane behavior. But wait, it gets worse. 2 days after we came home from the hospital, I decided to check his old Facebook account because my intuition was screaming at me. And there it was. Buried deep in his old posts from years ago was a photo of him and Sophia sitting together at a cafe. The caption, "Can't wait to have a daughter with you someday." I literally stopped breathing for a second. Same name, same dream, same future, except now he was living it with me instead of her. I felt physically sick. If you think this is already bad, trust me, it somehow gets worse, so don't skip ahead. I confronted him again that night, and instead of denying it, he admitted that Sophia had broken up with him. Not the other way around. Everything he told me before had been a lie. According to him, she left because she didn't want kids or marriage, while he did. He admitted he thought she was the love of his life at one point. I asked him point blank if he still loved her, and this man actually paused before answering. Paused. That silence told me more than any words ever could. I started screaming at him and asking if our entire marriage had just been some weird replacement fantasy. He got angry too and said I was being dramatic and that obviously he loved me because he married me. But honestly, sometimes people don't marry the person they truly love. Sometimes they marry the person who stays. That realization absolutely destroyed me. Over the next few days, things became unbearable between us. Every time I looked at my daughter, I thought about the fact that her name was connected to another woman. Another woman my husband clearly never got over. I couldn't even enjoy being a new mother because all I could think about was betrayal. My friends were furious when I told them. One of my friends literally said, "Girl, that baby is carrying his unresolved trauma." Even my own mom was horrified. She asked me if I wanted to change the name immediately before the paperwork became harder to fix. And honestly, I started considering it seriously. But when I brought it up to my husband, he completely exploded. He started accusing me of trying to erase our daughter's identity. Our daughter was 3 days old. What identity? The manipulation was actually insane. Then came the final straw. About a week later, while he was in the shower, his phone kept vibrating nonstop beside me. I normally never check phones, but at this point my trust was completely shattered. I looked down and saw a message notification from a contact that simply had a white heart emoji beside it. My stomach dropped instantly. I opened the messages and nearly threw up. It was Sophia. They had been talking for months, while I was pregnant, while I was carrying his child. And the worst part, she knew about the baby name. One of his messages literally said, "I still think Sophia is the most beautiful name in the world." And she responded with, "You're really going through with it." I genuinely felt like my soul left my body. He had planned this with her. This wasn't nostalgia. This wasn't coincidence. This was intentional. He came out of the bathroom and immediately knew from my face that I had seen everything. We got into the biggest fight of our entire relationship. He kept trying to say the messages were harmless and that he only talked to her occasionally, but I didn't care anymore. Because at that point it wasn't about cheating physically. It was emotional betrayal. It was the fact that he had turned one of the most important moments of my life into some twisted tribute to another woman. I ended up taking the baby and staying at my mom's house for almost 2 weeks. During that time, he spammed my phone nonstop apologizing, begging me to come back, promising to cut Sophia off forever, promising therapy, promising everything. But honestly, the damage was already done. The one thing I could never get out of my head was this. When he looked at our daughter for the first time, he didn't think about me. He thought about her. Eventually, after talking with my family and a lawyer, I made my decision. I legally changed my daughter's name without telling him until the paperwork was finalized. And yes, before anyone asks, I picked the name Lily, the name I originally wanted during pregnancy. When my husband found out, he completely lost his mind. He accused me of betrayal, manipulation, revenge, everything. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. Because if he was allowed to secretly name our child after his ex, then I was allowed to reclaim my daughter's identity from his obsession. We're currently separated, and last I heard, Sophia blocked him completely after finding out our marriage exploded because of her. Honestly, the irony is hilarious. He lost his wife, his family, and his fantasy all at once because he couldn't let go of the past. So yeah, my husband named our baby after his ex, and it completely destroyed our marriage. If you made it this far, comment below whether you think I overreacted or if you would have left too, because I genuinely still can't believe this happened to me. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insane Reddit-style stories because trust me, people on this planet are absolutely unhinged.